Good morning. Today I'll be talking about how the processes of change affect rural environments. Today I'll be talking about demographics, inequality, regeneration and counter-urbanisation.
The rural demographics has changed in the last few years. In 2011, the average age was 45, whereas in 2001, the average age was 42. The reason is because people are relocating due to counter-urbanisation to the rural areas because of the baby boom, and 33% are retiring in rural areas.
A lot of low-income families don't receive enough transport help, provisional services and healthcare.
Transport is not accessible for people of low-income groups. For example, here in a rural area of Benidorm, 59% of people use the car because of the lack of accessibility. However, 11% of these people do not have the access to a car. Therefore, there is inequality with the low-income groups. This is something the rural areas need to work on. As we mentioned before about the demographic of rural areas, the average age of these people is increasing, which older people are actually more vulnerable to health-related problems. Therefore, there's going to be more of a strain on healthcare, and this is also going to cause some sort of inequality in the demographic, where some older people who live in remote areas will not have the accessibility, as we mentioned before, in transport, to access these hospitals, where ambulances have a very long time to reach these areas.
Come with me on my journey as I tell you about second homeowners. A place in St Ives. 1 in 5 houses are second homeowners. Is this fair? No, because people of richer areas are driving up the house prices, which means that people who actually live in the area are not able to afford the house prices or the local shops for supplies such as milk, which have gone up 50p in the last 20 years. Come with me on my journey as I tell you about second homeowners. A place in St Ives. 1 in 5 houses are second homeowners. Is this fair? No, because people of richer areas are driving up the house prices, which means that people who actually live in the area are not able to afford the house prices or the local shops.
Service provision can be under threat in rural communities where the threshold population that gives money to these places is too small. Therefore, places such as the post office can be shut down, which can cause great effect for the local people. This has also happened to 473 banks in rural areas last year, where they all shut down due to the uprising of online banking. This also had massive threat to those areas with a lack of broadband. So now we're going to talk about regeneration, and we have a young family here that we're just going to talk to you about how Benidorm regenerated the village shop. So, how has this impacted you?
Well, it's been amazing. Like it's so great to know that everyone is in the community. Like the girls from the school can work there, and we get to know them because they're here for a lot of their time, and it's great to have.
Because it was going to be shut down, but because of the school community, they chipped in a bit, and everyone helps out to keep it alive.
It's created, you know, I don't have to travel for miles to go to a shop to get my.
It's convenient.
Can you stop interrupting?
Yes, thank you. Back to you, Heather.
Hi. Also, in rural areas, many of the young people are moving away to cities to get a degree, and there is a rising increase in the need to get a degree as the competition for jobs is increasing due to Asians and people coming over. Because 50% of young people now go to university because they need a degree because of the competitive competition from people coming over from other places. And people who used to do manual labour and didn't need much skill now need skill because they were thought of as dumb. Sorry, I meant no skills. And anyway, these people who used to be able to do manual labour now can't because they need the experience and the teaching to be able to use a hardcore machinery. In southern Wales, in places like Aberystwyth or Lynn Peninsula, 13,000 students have been up-trained by the local council because people have been moving away and for farming, because people have been moving away and they are left with the unskilled people. But now they're skilled.
The demographic. The age demographic of rural areas is increasing, where from 2001 to 2011, the average age has increased by 3 years, from 42 to 45. This is accompanied by 33% of older people migrating from urban areas to seek retirement in the rural idyll, as well as the baby boomers. 14% of households are made up of one person over the age of 65. These people are economically dependent, and they decrease the thresholds in the service provision.
Inequality. Some people in the rural area are unable to access some essential services, which include transport, service provision, and healthcare. Transport. There is a lack of transport services in rural areas where people are limited to car use. This is due to the poor quality of transport infrastructure, where a third of rural residents find public transport inadequate, as well as finding the scheduled times unfitting with school and work hours. This causes inequality with young families, baby boomers, who may not be able to afford a car, which accounts for 11% of the population in rural areas. This is compared to the 28% who 59% of people in the rural areas use cars.
33% of old people are now living in the area to retire because of these are the baby boomers. This means that the threshold population for the local schools is not going to be met by the number of children that are eligible to go to these schools. This means that local schools and stuff like that is going to have to be shut down, and that means that young families are going to have to be dispersed out of the area, meaning that the community spirit and everything can't be good. Also, people are becoming wealthier and richer. This means that the rich people will have a disposable income, and people are in areas where there's lots of tourism, such as St Ives, are buying up second houses. And in St Ives, 1 in 5 houses are second homeowners, which means that the prices of milk in shops is going to go up.
Healthcare. As mentioned before, the demographic in rural areas is increasing. Elderly people are more vulnerable to sickness and use healthcare more. As well as the already apparent risk towards older people, in rural areas there is a higher percentage of people that are left inactive by their disability or health problem compared to urban areas. These people face a bigger requirement for healthcare as well as the poor transport provisions. Therefore, in rural areas, people who require more medical attention are being forgotten.
Service provision. Service in rural areas can be under threat, such as local primary schools not meeting the threshold population of 98 children to stay open. Therefore, local families will be forced out of the area.
In order to further diversify rural places, regeneration is used. Promotional events which reinforce the perceptions of the rural idyll, for example, the Festival of Speed in Goodwood Estate, attract 200,000 visitors over 4 days. These events link heritage to exhibition events to attract a broad range of people. Re-imaging also plays a big part in changing perceptions of life in rural areas. For example, Corwin in Wales is an example of this, as it has had a positive effect on the region. The extension of the Llangollen Heritage Railway, funded by the Arts Council of Wales and built through volunteer work of the local residents, has helped raise the image of Corwin and attracted a higher percentage of tourists. Furthermore, Fawncett in St Peter in Norfolk converted disused telephone boxes into defibrillators, which serves for the local health and medical services. Also in West Sussex, phone boxes have been converted into libraries where people can drop off their old disused books which can be used by other people in the community. FDI investments in rural areas have also been associated with government policies to regenerate places or areas such as Nissen in the north-east area of England in Sunderland. This has helped boost employment in these areas significantly and has increased the state of the local economy. FDI has also occurred in Chesterfield, where US investors are transforming an open cast mining site to a health, sport and education facility, providing over 1,000 jobs. This will help the community by providing employment and an affordable location to spend leisure time. It also marks the downfall of the primary sector, however it is replaced by the rise of tertiary, preventing structural unemployment.
Are one strategy being used to counteract the pressure of counter-urbanisation and second homes. CLTs were first used in America during the civil rights movement of the 1960s and in areas of urban housing shortage. The principle was brought to the UK and the National CLT Charity was launched in 2014 as a response to early success of CLTs. A CLT in West Sussex has been in existence since 2013 and is sponsored by the Parish Council. It is currently forming itself into a community benefit society. The aim is to focus on providing affordable housing within the parish because the under-30s can no longer afford to buy property in the village. 8 houses on the housing development of several hundred homes are being bought by the Trust to rent to local people. In addition, the CLT aims to re-establish lost community facilities such as local shops. St David Peninsula CLT in Pembrokeshire hopes to build 118 homes on a site of 3.6 acres in the city of St David's. It is intended to include a swimming pool, a cafe and other shops in the development. The work has attracted more community involvement than has previously occurred. CLTs have to be constituted so they can buy, sell and rent properties and be eligible to obtain loans. Resale of owned properties is restricted to 30% of the market value. Local inhabitants have the right to buy or rent first.